Okay. Right. Thank you. First of all, good evening, everyone, and thank you for inviting me to speak to you this evening. My talk will be slightly different from the two previous speakers, as it will be focused on issues around domestic abuse. Hopefully, you've all managed to read the synopsis that Melangal has kindly posted, so you will be aware that I'm married to Father Pancratius. In fact, we have been married now for 55 years, say it quickly, and it's, wow. And so I was Presbytera at St. Barbara's, Chester, whilst as he was the priest there. Since his retirement, or as retired as a priest ever is, the parish is now in the very capable hands of Father John and Presbytera Vera. Now, before I go any further, I need to just make it clear this is a very emotive and sensitive subject. And please, if any of you are feeling emotional or are affected by the things that I'm saying and you wish to walk away, that is absolutely fine. And if anyone wants to contact me privately, I'm available, but you can get hold of me via either the WhatsApp, get the words out right, the WhatsApp group, or my Facebook page, which is Anna Sanders. Okay, that's the sort of the housekeeping, if you like. So how did I get into this? Well, in the year 2000, I was persuaded by a parishioner to apply for a new service that was being set up in Cheshire, to provide outreach support to women and children who were victims, I don't really like that word, but we'll use it, of domestic abuse. I didn't apply to begin with, and I was very hesitant because I said I had at that time, no particular knowledge about the subject. But she persevered, and she was very involved in setting this new service up. She persevered with me, and eventually I did apply, and to my surprise and almost horror, I was given the job. And I have to say, I think it was one of the best things that ever happened to me. So I worked for 2-3 years in that, working in the community, going out and meeting people who had asked for some help and had been highlighted to us. I then moved into working in a refuge, also in Cheshire, as a support worker. After a few years then, I had acted as manager for a time when we had a change of personnel. And I was then involved in setting up a brand new refuge, which was quite interesting and involved an awful lot of fundraising and liaising with council officials, etc., etc. My final move was to the refuge that was actually closest to where we lived at the time, and I became the CEO there. So that, in a nutshell, is my sort of journey. She had persuaded me, eventually, go back to this lady who tried to get me to do it. She had persuaded me that empathy that I showed as a Presbytera was what was needed. And empathy, if you're working with somebody with domestic abuse, is very important. So first of all, I must make it clear that both women and men are and can be subject to domestic abuse. My experience has all been with women, so I apologize, and I know we have at least one male here. I apologize that I'm using the female gender, if you like, throughout this, but pretty well everything that I say is also applicable to men who suffer. So first of all, what is domestic abuse? Well, the current definition, government definition, is as follows. I'll read it because otherwise I won't get it quite right. It's an incident or pattern of incidents of controlling, coercive, threatening, degrading, and violent behavior, including sexual violence, in the majority of cases by a partner or ex-partner, but also by a family member or carer. I would also include in that, which they haven't put in for some reason, financial abuse, which I will mention later on. Here's some recent statistics. 24, the next lot of statistics will be come out in November this year. So these are the most recent. 1 in 4 women are victims of domestic abuse at some time in their life. Now, I don't know how many women we've got on here now, but let's say there's 10 of us. That's more than 2 of us, statistically, will have been or will be subjected to domestic abuse at some point. That statistic has not changed in all the time I've been working in this. So 1 in 4, one would have hoped that might have gone down with all the work that goes on and has gone on, but it hasn't. 1 in 7 men are victims. So that puts everything into context, I think. At least 20% or 1 in 5 children will witness domestic abuse within their families and are also often at risk. In average, a woman domestic abuse victim is murdered in this country every 3 days. 1 woman every 3 days, which that's quite horrific. And in fact, only today on the news, there was a report of a man being found guilty of murdering his wife when she was out pushing their 7-month-old baby. So that's just to put it into context. Police receive a phone call about a domestic abuse incident every 30 seconds, 24/7. So you can imagine that's across England and Wales. These figures are for England and Wales. Statistics I know, because this will be of interest to some of you, are very similar throughout the whole of the world. Some countries it is worse. America is very similar to here, but I don't think there's a country where the statistics are much better than this. As Orthodox Christians, many incidents are not reported to the police. There's an awful lot that is never known about. As Orthodox Christians, we should be both horrified and aware of the realities and dangers of domestic abuse. We also must be aware and acknowledge that it does occur within Orthodox families and within Orthodox parishes. I personally have dealt with a number of cases of people suffering domestic abuse within the church, some within parishes that I have known, some where I have on occasions, because people have known what I do, I have received phone calls asking for help as to how people should help. And I'm always willing to be on the end of a line if somebody needs some advice as to what to do. So please bear that in mind. Presbyteras are often approached by parishioners, especially women, with issues, concerns that they may, at least initially, be uncomfortable with speaking with their priest about. So it is really, a lot of the times, that may well be a woman who is suffering from domestic abuse and doesn't know where to turn and what they can do. So it is really important that we know how to help and, if necessary, where to go or help. So as Orthodox, how should we respond? Let's take a moment to consider some pointers from the Bible, many of which can be found in both the Old and the New Testament. And I've just got 2 from the Old Testament and 2 from the New Testament as an example. If you search online for domestic abuse and how the Bible, things from the Bible, you will find lots more. So the ones I've got, example, Psalm 11, verse 5, the Lord tests the righteous and the wicked, and his hot soul hates him who loves violence. And Proverbs, verses 6 to 6, chapter 6, verses 16 to 19. I have slightly left out 1 or 2 words just to keep it not too long. There are 6 things which the Lord hates, 7 of which are an abomination to him: haughty eyes, a lying tongue, and hands that shed blood, a heart that devises wicked plans, feet that make haste to run to evil, a false witness who breathes out lies, and a man who sows discord among brothers. And in the New Testament, I've actually got 3 here. Colossians chapter 3, verse 12. Put on then as God's chosen ones, and this is true for all of us, for not just around abuse, compassion, kindness, lowliness, meekness, and patience. Husbands, love your wives and do not be harsh with them. And Ephesians 6, verse 28, husbands should love their wives. Let each one, and verse 33, let each one of you love his wife as himself, and let the wife see that she respects her husband. And then, of course, the one that we all know so well, in 1 Corinthians, verse 4 to 7, love is patient and kind. Love is not jealous or boastful. It is not arrogant or rude. Love does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrong, but rejoices in the right. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. I'm sure you would all see why I've chosen those particular passages. There are many other examples which are easy to find. So when I was working, and as I go through the rest of it, I will be giving you some examples of incidents which I have worked with, women I've worked with, situations I've come across. So when I was working in the outreach, the very first lady, and I have never forgotten this, the very first person I went to see, we'd had a phone call from this lady's mother who ran a nursery, a children's nursery, about her daughter. Her daughter had agreed that she needed to speak to someone. So I went out, met this young girl. She was 18. She had a baby. And her partner, who was a similar age to her, was very abusive to her, including controlling her, not letting her see her friends, calling her all sorts of names, putting her down, and had also started to hit her. We talked, I gave her some advice, put her in touch with some help that she could get. I came out, I sat in my car, and I cried my eyes out because my daughter, my own daughter, had just gone to university at the same age. So you can imagine that, thinking of those two, And that was when I knew that this was something that I needed to do, some work I needed to do. There are different forms of domestic abuse. Right away, obviously, is physical abuse. But that is usually the last part of the jigsaw. Now, many people will say, oh, well, if he was to hit me, I'd walk away straight away, or something in those ways, or express surprise that, well, why on earth didn't she go? The truth of the matter is that by the time it gets to the point where she is being hit, an awful lot has gone on before, a lot of control. He will have controlled her so that she has lost touch with her family, her no good at this, that, or the other, that the way she dresses is awful, etc., etc. So many different things. Quite possibly she will have been sexually abused by him. So that by the time, it's always her fault. Very often women have said to us, whenever he's hit me, he said, oh, it's your fault. It's because you didn't do this, or you didn't have my tea on the table at the time I wanted it, whatever it might be. So that they have lost any self-confidence, and they're scared, very scared, and they are at that point right to be scared. Often a controlling partner will start by isolating in a seemingly loving way. Oh, I love you so much. Oh, let's not go out. Let's not go and see anybody. I don't want other people to see you wearing these gorgeous clothes. Only wear them for me. That type of thing. All of which is quite calculated to get her completely under his control. So that sort of control leading on to no one else should see you like that. Then there's, as I mentioned before, there's the blame game. So many times when women have come into refuge, we have had to work so hard helping them to regain their self-confidence, because they are, but it's my fault. I shouldn't have done this. I shouldn't have done that. That's why he did it. And it's so hard to overcome that. Mind games, gaslighting. I don't know whether you're aware of gaslighting. That is when you make someone really feel that they're going mad. You may or may not know the play that was first came out as a radio play in, I think, the 1940s, late 1940s, and it then became a stage play where the husband will go out and he will say, you're losing your mind. Where did you put it? And he would go out and he would go, seemingly go out to go to work or whatever, and he would go into an attic above her and she would hear the footsteps, not knowing who it was. He would move things away so that, well, you've lost that. What have you done with it? And so she becomes completely run down, completely. I won't go into any more details. If you ever get the chance to hear it, it is incredibly moving. Sorry, I'm trying to think and give you some examples as we go. Honor-based violence, let's mention that as well. Honor-based violence, I have come across on a number of occasions. And this is not just the husbands that are the problem. Let me tell you one story of a young girl, young woman, very intelligent. She was training to be an accountant, And she became involved with an English Christian boyfriend. Her parents, who were strict Muslims, were horrified, forced her to give him up, and then said, "Oh, we're going on holiday. Come on, we're all going, the whole family, off to," I think it was Bangladesh, if I remember correctly. And so off they went to Bangladesh, where she was forcibly married and raped by the husband. And this is the bit that I can never get my head around, with her mother watching and saying, "Now you're bringing honor to the family." She managed to escape. She's a British national. She managed to escape, and she got to the capital city. The British embassy got involved. She was put somewhere safe, and they managed to get her back to this country. She then went into a number of refuges, whilst everything about her was being changed. She was given completely new identity. She was given a new national insurance number, which is incredibly unusual and very, very difficult. And she had one person that she could connect with for anything to do with that she could do. So there was only one person that she could speak to. She ended up in the refuge I was working in. And the one piece of work that she wanted us to do was to find out and to arrange where she would be able to have a Muslim burial. Because she said, "I know they will one day, they will find me and they will kill me." Now, she said, "I'm not moving again. I'm here now in this city. I won't say which city. I'm not running anymore. I'm going to try and get on with life." And she was rehoused. To the best of my knowledge, I have never heard that she's been killed. So I hope and pray that she's okay. But that one has always stuck with me. Another honor-based one that we had was again from Bangladesh. A young girl whose father was quite high up in Bangladesh authority, and knew the president and so on really well. They had family over here, so she was brought over here to marry her cousin, which happened. She had then had two children, two gorgeous boys, by the husband. The mother, so mother-in-law, treated her as a slave, and the husband was very abusive to her. Eventually, with the help of social services who got involved for various reasons, they managed to spirit her away, and she came to the refuge that I was working in, the one I was CEO at. And she was looking at her immigration status. And it turned out that she had been brought over here on a child's visa. And that visa had expired and nothing had ever been done for her. The amount of work that we did with that lady, legal work, to try and get her the right to stay in this country. She was terrified to go back to Bangladesh because her father would have probably had her killed. Cut a very long story short, eventually it went to court, and we were very fortunate that she got an excellent barrister who tore strips into the immigration people, and she was given the right to stay in this country. Both her boys had British passports. She kept it, even once she was rehoused, she kept in touch with us for many years because she was so grateful. Other examples, Domestic abuse happens to people of all ages, men and women. I have worked with people aged between 18 and 80 or 80 plus. We had one lady who came to us from the Midland area, and she had been in hospital. She came to us straight from hospital because he had put her in hospital when he had been beating her with a hoover so badly that she very nearly died. And she was a lady at the time in her late 60s. We had another lady who came to us. I've never forgotten this one. Absolutely terrified. She hadn't come from very far away, far enough away. But she managed to get away, came to the refuge, and for months would not even go out the door because she was so terrified of being found. All those ladies, had they not escaped, almost certainly would have been killed. So we have an issue, don't we? Because marriage is very important and we believe in the sanctity of marriage. But there are occasions when you have to say it's not safe to stay in this relationship and you must do something about it. And that is where we can help if we come across that situation. So how do we help? Well, one thing is, first of all, to believe what we're being told. Not to go, oh, that's awful, oh, but to listen quietly and take on board and then think about what help you can give. So one way you can give help is by knowing where to go to get help. And I'll go into that in a few minutes. Just keeping an eye on the time as well. But to believe her and to make sure she's aware of her options. Ask questions, but they must be open-ended questions, not ones that she can just go either yes or no. So maybe say, what has happened? What is making you frightened? And then she'll come up with something and you can lead on from them. Well, how did that make you feel? Those sort of questions. So how can you find out things? Well, there is the national helpline number. And if I can work out how to do it, I will try and put these on if there's a comment section. I haven't worked out how to do that yet. The national helpline number is 0800 2000 24/7. And that is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can either encourage somebody to phone up themselves, or you can phone for advice and help. There are two main charities in this country which offer services. One, I've already mentioned, is Women's Aid. The other one is Refuge, both of which have very good, very useful websites. And I would urge you to look at them. I think Women's Aid in particular has an awful lot of things that you can read and find out more about. Now, I'm not aware of any Orthodox diocese in this country which has a specific policy around domestic abuse. Yes, we have safeguarding policies, and obviously domestic abuse comes under that because safeguarding is so much. I'll talk about children in a moment. But there is a brilliant policy in America on the GoArch site. And it's well worth, if I don't manage to get the link, it's a very long link. If you put a search in for on the GoArch website for domestic violence manual, it will come up. It is excellent. And there is one particularly good one, which is written by a priest, and which I think is very helpful for knowing how we as Orthodox should be able to help. I haven't really mentioned finance. Financial abuse is tremendously prevalent. So a woman will not be able to access money. We had one lady whose husband was an airline pilot. So they were well off. He was not badly paid, but he gave her a pittance she wasn't allowed to go out to work. That's very common. She had a pittance, and he expected a good meal for himself every day he was at home. So she had to prioritize that. She had children. To cut a long story short, again, she was working with a colleague of mine, and she did leave him safely. And we've never forgotten the phone call we had from her one day. She phoned up to speak to my colleague in floods of tears because we had managed to get her the benefits that she was due. And in fact, the benefits people were excellent because when they knew the whole story, they backdated so that she got money that she should have had in any case. She phoned up in tears. I'm in the middle of Tesco's, whichever supermarket it was, and I've got a trolley full and I can pay for it. A simple thing like that meant so much to her. It was never forgotten that. Children suffer tremendously from domestic abuse, even if they are not hurt themselves. The lady who persuaded me to go into this work, her husband had witnessed his parents' domestic violence. His father was very abusive to his mother. At one point, he himself went completely off the rails. He was, I think, expelled from school and all sorts of things. However, he overcame it. And he actually became a social worker, and he became absolutely a wonderful supporter of the services that work for domestic abuse. He was tremendous. In the refuges, they will always have playroom for children, and where possible, they will have dedicated children's workers. And they do tremendous work with trying to rebuild confidence in these children, to get the children to start to love their mums again. Particularly boys of perhaps 10, 11 and a bit older, would often have been worked on by dad to be, mums are down at the bottom and all that, so to be abusive themselves. So a lot of work would go on with that. Let me tell you one little story about a little boy who was 3, came into refuge with his mum. Every day went down to the playroom, and he would do only one thing. And he would go to the sand tray, and he would make 2 mounds at either end of the sand tray. He would get a toy car, and he would take this toy car from one mound right round the sand tray and crash it into the second mound. And that was Daddy going to get mummy. At 3, that was his knowledge. It took weeks and weeks to help him to overcome that and to start becoming a little boy again, as he should have been. I could talk forever, but I want to give you the opportunity to ask any questions. So thank you for listening. I hope it's been helpful. Anyone wish to say anything, ask me anything?
Yes, thank you very much for that. It's really interesting, and actually, I was really shocked to learn that these statistics are this level of abuse is worldwide.
Oh, absolutely.
And indeed could be worse. I don't know how much more worse it is in other societies, depending on various factors. But do you have any? Well, there's always hope, obviously. But have you got any confidence that this cycle of violence, which is obviously being imprinted on children and on those who
right,
is it actually being stopped at all?
Well, there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes. Our refuge work do an awful lot with children. But the little boy that I mentioned, and others to try and do. The gentleman that I mentioned, the husband of the lady that got me into this, is a prime example because he had lived as a child with domestic abuse, but he had overcome it. There are a number of programs which run in different parts of the country. There's what's called the Freedom Program, and there are others. I've been retired now for 8 years, so I'm not fully up with what is current. But there are a lot of programs which women can go to for children, and there are. I say this with a bit of thing that quite often men will be. And again, I apologise, gentlemen, that I say this. Abusers, let's say, whether they're men or women, can be sent to anger management courses, for example. Now, as workers, we were always very suspicious about that because if you can manage your anger, then you manage how to control. So we don't know that they were always useful, but there are programs to help men or to help abusers. Let me try and get the wording right. To help abusers to overcome it. There are a lot of people, there's a lot more going on these days to try and let people out in the community know. I mean, I have to say, whatever you may think or not about the royal family, Queen Camilla is a wonderful advocate for looking at help for domestic abuse. She herself was a victim. You may or may not know that, but her first husband, Andrew Parker Bowles, was in fact at times abusive. So she really understands, and she's quite powerful in getting people to come together and to try and talk things through. So yes, there are things going on, but it's hard work, and I don't think we'll ever completely get rid of it.
This is probably not a particularly popular question, but would you say from your experience that some women are perhaps, shall we say, complicit in their own abuse, or abusees are more complicit in their abuse?
Quite often, because depends what you mean by are they complicit. Yes, there are occasions when sort of alcohol and drugs can often be an issue. I can remember one couple who were both alcoholics and they abused each other. So yes, that does happen. And like I say, once the control has got in, then quite often women will accept it, which is a form of being complicit, isn't it? They will accept it. They will assume that it's their fault. And so they don't do anything about it. And they can be very frightened. So they just go along with it. And it can take an awful lot of work. I mean, we have worked with with women who've gone back. I forget the actual statistic, But if I remember rightly, there was a statistic that said that a woman will leave and return at least 4 or 5 times before they can finally make the break that they probably need to. And that may be why some of them actually end up getting killed, because they go back too often. There was one lady, again in the early times, who used to turn up at A&E regularly with a broken, and the A&E staff knew her well, they knew what was going on, and they would say to her, we can help, we can find somewhere for you. Oh no, she said, it's fine. I'll go back and it'll be lovely for a few months, the honeymoon period, as we used to call it. I'll get flowers, chocolates, he'll treat me to all sorts of things, and then it'll start again. But that's okay, I'll live with it. So yes, in a way, that's being complicit, isn't it?
Did you find in your experience that having got out of one abusive relationship, that the same woman would perhaps choose another person that was of the same behaviour, the same ilk?
That's certainly that happened. Some women did go through more than one abusive relationship because their judgment wasn't right. And that again is education, trying to teach them. Lot of teaching has gone on, and I was involved in some of it, within schools, talking to teenage girls and boys about what a good relationship should be and what it shouldn't be, because it's at that stage quite often that things start to go wrong. Like the very first one I told you about.
Can I just comment, though, that a lot of this, I feel, is driven by lack of love and a desperation to receive love at extremely high cost. And so it's kind of unfair to, and if people have been brought up in abusive situations at home when they're children, I mean, they're hardwired to kind of expect that kind of behavior.
Oh, yes. It can be very hard on both sides, both becoming an abuser and becoming abused. Oh, absolutely. Elizabeth had her hand up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. When you first started talking, you were talking about, I think, if I got it right, the Archdiocese has safeguarding policy.
Yes.
But not a particular part of that for domestic abuse. Am I right?
If I remember rightly, I think abuse does come into it, but it's not there's not a specific policy about domestic abuse.
Well,
which is why the Go Arch one is.
Yeah, is there anything being done about that? Because that's quite an important mission, really. I'm from a social care and social work background,
right?
So that really concerns me.
I'm 100% with you on that.
Yes.
Which is why I have mentioned the Go Arch policy. I would encourage everybody to have a look at that and perhaps speak to your priests, to your bishops, maybe to the office of your diocese, and see whether they can look at that and see whether, I mean, obviously it is American, so the statistics and everything and helplines are all American, but the actual content is something that I think could very easily be incorporated. It may be that parishes themselves might want a fairly simple policy. And I'm certainly happy to help a little bit on that. I've written a fair number of these in my past.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Can I just say one thing that is quite interesting? This is a problem for priests, particularly the priests who hear confessions. If I go going back many, many years, I had not been working in the area for very long, and Father Pancratius was away on a clergy conference. And for some reason, a young priest approached him, and, well, we know why he approached him. God moves in wonderful ways. Because he was very concerned and he wanted to ask for some advice. He had had a lady who had divulged domestic abuse to him in confession. And he had told her basically that, marriage, the sanctity of marriage, she had to go home and cope with it. And he had come away, and after that, he said, I don't know if I've done the right thing. So what my husband said to him was, when you get home, here's our telephone number, have a talk with my wife. And bless him, he did. He phoned me and we had a very long conversation. And he went away saying, I know now the sort of thing I should be saying to her, how to help her. Not necessarily to leave or not immediately, but he had a better understanding of what they can lead to. The most dangerous time for a woman is when she leaves. There was one case, it's happened so many times, you can easily find them, but one case of a man who worked in construction industry, very abusive, and she had left and returned a number of times. And on this occasion, she said to him, that's it, I am going and I'm not coming back. And he killed her before she had a chance to get in a blanket, put her in the boot of his car, got his dad to come and help, put the two children in their child seats in the car, drove to the construction site that he worked on. I think he was either a manager or a foreman, and buried her under concrete. He's now serving a life sentence. His father is serving a long sentence for aiding and abetting. Those children have now lost both parents and a grandfather because they no longer have their mother, and because the father is serving a life sentence and will not be allowed to have contact with children. They've lost their father. And that's what happens to children. Mm-hmm. Sorry, you can tell I'm quite passionate about all this.
You mentioned previously about the priest and his advice. With the increasing number of a certain kind of young man with certain attitudes, do you think that this is going to become more of an issue for women in the Orthodox Church?
Oh, that's a very hard question, Mirango, to answer. One would hope not, but it's not impossible. I have to say, I haven't personally come across a situation where an Orthodox priest has been abusive. I have come across a couple of Anglican priests who were abusive, and other leading church people. One of the questions, I used to do a lot of talks, particularly towards the end of my career, to different groups, mostly things like Women's Institute and others union groups. And I could always guarantee the one question, which none of you have asked, which is great, which is, what sort of man does this? And my stock answer, well, there's the unemployed, and all the heads would, oh, yes. There's the labourer, oh, yes. So they were quite happy with this. The taxi driver, the policeman, the teacher, the priest, the lawyer, the airline pilot, and I would end up with a member of the House of Lords. And I have worked with women married or in a relationship with people from all those. So it crosses all layers of society. But yes, I mean, I think it is something that I don't know within the training and everything that they get, whether there is some way in which that can be addressed to ensure that if they are going to get married, that they marry for the right reasons. I can see completely where you were coming from with that question. I don't know the answer though. What I will do, Margaret, is if I send you, because I don't know how to put it on here. If I
I
send
have
you
a question.
Oh.
Good evening. My name is Silvana. I'm new to this. It's my first time. And then I want to ask you a question. It's not like already all together, but I'm trying. Bear with me. So what it is like a trigger for like couples that they are living, how to say, let's say worldly, so they're not part of the Anglican Church or the Orthodox or Catholic Church. So whatever is triggered, like in some like in the couples, that can make them aware to don't become an abuser or an abused.
right,
one?
well, where they can get help, do you mean?
No, I mean like regarding what it can sort into, I don't know, to make them aware for like these couples that they are like not in the church so much, because for what I understood, most of the problems that it's said here is because they don't know God. So in the process of knowing God, they are like far away, and then they have just some like not so many values somehow.
Right. Well, a lot of abuse couples that are abused will not have any faith of any sort, but there are plenty that do, and it's more about. I mean, I think it's far worse. That the control, it's all about control. That control is what they want. They want to control somebody, and almost it doesn't matter whether they have a faith or not. Within certain cultures, like the honor-based ones I've mentioned, abuse is almost the norm. And that takes an awful lot. There's some wonderful organisations. Southall Black Sisters is one that comes to mind, who work specifically with those cultures to try and educate as to what should be, because it's in their makeup really that this is what you do, and we've seen it so often. But I think it's very much the two individuals, one of whom will want to have total control over the other one. Does that answer your question at all?
Yes, it is. It is. Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. I hope the gentlemen who are with us have not been too upset by my concentrating it on women. Everything I have said can be switched around. There are some very abusive women around as well, and we're very aware of that. I will send you the links, Narangel, so that you can send us.
Well, if there are no more questions, it just remains for me to thank Presbytera Anna very much for her very interesting talk, and I think we will all take something away from it. So thank you again. We will be having a new series of speakers, probably starting in November, and so keep your eyes open and your ears open on WhatsApp and on your text messages and on Facebook, and you will hear more about it. Thanks for joining us tonight. Good night.
You're very welcome. I hope it's been helpful. And like I say, anyone who wants to contact me individually, please do.
Thank you, Val.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.